There's something deeply painful about reaching for someone who keeps stepping back. You convince yourself that if you just try a little harder, love will feel safe. If you speak softer, smile more, expect less, maybe then they'll stay. But that's not love. That's fear dressed up as loyalty. And love, the real kind, doesn't demand you to beg for space in someone's life. It welcomes you in without hesitation. You don't have to perform for it. You don't have to shape, shift or hide pieces of yourself just to be accepted. The moment you feel you're fighting to be seen, something's already wrong. I used to believe that love meant holding on, no matter how invisible I felt. I thought love was about sacrifice, about giving and giving, even when there was nothing left of me. But now I see the truth. Love that requires you to beg is not love. It's control. It's silence when you're crying out. It's empty promises when your heart is breaking, and somehow we call it passion, we call it complicated, but all it really is one-sided. There's a quiet kind of ache in pretending you're okay with being an afterthought. You stay longer than you should, hoping that your patience will pay off, that eventually they'll look at you and finally see all that you've done. But people don't learn to love you while you're shrinking for them. They learn that you'll accept crumbs, and that becomes the pattern. You get smaller, you make excuses, you lose the sound of your own voice just to keep someone close. But the truth is, someone who truly cares won't let it get that far. They won't let you disappear in the name of love, and I know, it's hard to walk away. You think that maybe, just maybe, one more conversation could change everything. Maybe if you loved them a little louder, they'd start listening. But that's not how love is built. It's not a game of convincing. It's a space where both people feel safe enough to be exactly who they are. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to chase after moments of connection like they're rare. When someone wants to be there, you'll feel it. They won't let days pass in silence. They won't make you guess how they feel. They'll show up, not because you begged them to, but because they care, and caring doesn't ask for pain in return. It doesn't make you question your worth or punish you with distance. It's consistent, it's soft, it's strong, and if that's not what you're receiving, then you're not in love, you're in longing. I've learned that peace often looks like loneliness at first, but later you'll realize it's just the absence of chaos, and in that quiet, you'll remember who you are without the constant ache of trying to be enough for someone else. You'll stop apologizing for your needs. You'll stop watering yourself down, because when you choose to stop begging, you choose to reclaim the parts of you that you gave away too easily, and no matter how much it hurts to let go, you'll find power in the decision to stop asking for what should have been given freely. Love shouldn't hurt like that. It shouldn't feel like a test, and once you truly understand that, you'll never again settle for hands that make you feel like you have to earn your place, because you've always been worthy of love that simply stays. There's a quiet kind of dignity in not needing to be noticed to know your worth. Respect, the kind that truly matters, doesn't come from loud voices or constant approval. It comes from the stillness of knowing who you are even when no one's looking. You don't chase respect. You don't run after it, hoping others will hand it to you like a prize for behaving right. You live it, you become it, and in that quiet commitment to your own values, the world either rises to meet you, or it doesn't. But either way, you stay grounded. People often confuse respect with validation. They think it's about being liked, agreed with, applauded, but respect is something else entirely. It's about boundaries. It's about how you speak, how you carry pain, how you respond when someone crosses a line. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about knowing what you will and will not allow, and when you hold that line, not with anger, but with calm certainty, people begin to see who they're dealing with. Not someone desperate for approval, but someone rooted in self-awareness. It took me time to understand that you don't have to demand respect to receive it. You don't have to shout to be heard. When you start respecting yourself, your time, your energy, your peace, it shows in your silence more than your words. The things you don't argue about, the places you no longer go, the people you let drift away. That's where the real shift happens, not in confrontation, but in choosing yourself quietly, again and again, and sometimes it hurts. especially when the people you thought would respect you the most are the ones who tested you the hardest. You think maybe if I explain myself better, they'll understand. Maybe if I keep showing up, they'll finally value me. But that's not how respect works. You don't earn it by bending. You earn it by standing firm. Even if it means standing alone, respect is not about dominance. It's not about who wins or who's right. It's about presence. It's about a kind of internal strength that doesn't waver when things get uncomfortable. It's the way you respond when you're overlooked. The way you stay soft even when someone tries to harden you. There's something powerful about that restraint, about not lowering yourself to prove a point. You don't have to match someone's chaos to remind them of your worth. You just walk away, knowing it speaks louder. People will treat you based on what you allow. The more you chase respect, the more you signal that you don't believe you already deserve it. And when you carry that disbelief, others feel it too. But when you move like someone who honors their own heart, who protects their time and doesn't explain every decision, people either rise to that or remove themselves. And both outcomes are blessings. You don't need to fight to be valued. You just need to keep showing up as someone who already is. In the way you listen, in the way you forgive, in the way you no longer plead to be seen. That quiet knowing becomes your power, and suddenly the need to chase anything disappears, because respect, when it's real, doesn't make you beg. It doesn't make you prove. It comes to those who no longer ask for it, because they've already become it. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels sacred. The world might tell you that being alone means something's wrong, that solitude is a punishment or proof you weren't chosen. But I've learned that being alone, truly alone with yourself, is where you meet the version of you that doesn't need approval, doesn't chase affection, and doesn't break herself to be understood. Solitude isn't a wound. It's the medicine. And in that stillness, in that space where no one is watching, you begin to remember how whole you actually are. We've been taught that connection is everything, that we're incomplete without someone to love us, someone to choose us. And we start to see solitude as something we need to escape. We fill the silence with noise, people, distraction, anything to avoid facing the quiet truth that we're afraid of being with ourselves. But the truth is, the moment you stop running from your own company, something shifts. You start to hear your own voice again, clear and without apology, and in that voice there's wisdom, there's truth, there's healing. I used to feel like I was missing something if I wasn't in love, if I wasn't surrounded, included, invited. But now I see that solitude isn't the absence of love, it's the presence of self, and there's a strength that grows in that space. You begin to realize that you don't need constant reassurance. You don't need to be seen to feel seen. You don't have to be held to feel held, because you've learned how to hold yourself. That's the kind of power no one can give you. It doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself again and again, even when the world doesn't understand it. Especially then, because when you learn to sit in your own silence without feeling like something is missing, you've already won. That's when you stop begging for love, because you've found it inside. That's when you stop chasing respect, because you've built it brick by brick, with every boundary you honored, and every truth you didn't silence just to keep the peace. People may call you distant, they may say you've changed, but they won't see what it took to get here. They won't feel the nights you sat quietly with your own pain and didn't numb it. They won't hear the conversations you had with yourself when no one else was listening. They won't know the strength it took to stop calling people who only answered when it was convenient. That's okay. Let them misunderstand. This version of you doesn't need to be explained. Solitude teaches you how to return to yourself. It gives you the room to grieve, to heal, to rebuild, and when love does come, because it will, it won't feel like rescue. It won't feel like a reward for suffering. It will feel like a soft addition to a life already full. You won't need it to prove anything. You'll accept it without clinging. You'll love without losing yourself. That's the beauty of solitude. It teaches you how to be whole first. And when you're whole, you no longer chase what you used to. You don't beg for love. You don't plead for space. You don't lower your voice just to be heard. You simply exist, with softness, with strength, with clarity, and that kind of presence cannot be ignored. Because it doesn't scream, it doesn't chase, it simply stays. Just like the love and respect you now know you deserve. There comes a point when silence becomes louder than any words you could say. You spend so much time hoping they'll notice your effort, your presence, your loyalty. You explain, you forgive, you bend, thinking maybe they'll finally value what you bring. But they don't, and not because they can't, because they don't have to. You've taught them that no matter what they give, you'll stay. That no matter how much they take, you won't walk away. But one day you do, and in that moment, you say more than you ever did before. You don't need to raise your voice or beg someone to see your worth. You don't need to repeat the same conversation over and over, hoping this time something will change. Some people won't change, not because they're incapable, but because your tolerance made them comfortable. They believed you'd never leave, that your love was stronger than your limits. But love without limits is not love, it's sacrifice. And the longer you stay in that space, the more you forget what it means to be respected. You can't keep explaining your value to people who benefit from not understanding it. The moment you feel you have to prove your worth is the moment you're giving it away too freely. People see how far you're willing to go for them, and they adjust their effort accordingly. They give you just enough to keep you there, but never enough to make you feel full. That's not love, that's survival, and love should never make you starve. When you finally walk away, something shifts, not just in them, but in you. You begin to feel the strength that was buried under all the hoping. You begin to hear your own voice without the noise of someone else's neglect. And maybe they'll notice your absence. Maybe they won't. But that's not the point. The point is, you noticed your own pain and decided it mattered enough to act on it. That's where everything begins to change. Walking away isn't dramatic. It's not cold. It's clarity. It's the quiet decision that you've had enough. It's choosing yourself not out of anger, but out of self-respect. You realize that staying was the loudest form of begging, and you stop. You stop asking them to care. You stop wishing they'd see you the way you deserve. You stop accepting apologies with no action, because you've learned that someone who truly values you won't need a reminder, and sometimes you'll miss them. Of course you will, but missing someone is not the same as needing to return. You can love someone and still choose yourself. You can wish it had been different and still not go back. That's not weakness. That's growth, and the strength it takes to leave isn't always loud or clear. Sometimes it's just a quiet morning where you don't reach out, a night when you let the silence be, a day where you finally breathe without waiting for a message that never comes. Eventually, you stop trying to be understood by people who never really listened. You stop looking for closure in places that only gave you confusion. You stop hoping for change in someone who was never willing to meet you halfway. And in that stopping, you find peace. You find that love doesn't ask you to break yourself. Respect doesn't require your silence, and you don't have to beg for either. You are not too much. You were just in the wrong place, offering the right things to the wrong hands. Now you know better. Now you act differently, and the ones who are meant for you will never make you feel like your voice is too loud or your presence too heavy. They'll stay, not because you asked, but because they see you, and that's enough. In a world that often rewards coldness, being soft can feel like a risk. You look around and see people protecting themselves with silence, detachment, pretending not to care, and maybe you tried to follow that path too, tried to be distant, tried to shut off your heart to avoid being hurt. But it never felt real, did it? Because deep down, you're not built to be numb. You feel everything. You notice the small things. You care even when it's not returned. And somewhere along the way, you were made to believe that softness is weakness. That in order to survive, you have to become harder, colder, less available. But that's the biggest lie of all. Your softness is not your flaw. It's your rebellion. It's your quiet way of refusing to let this world steal your tenderness. It takes more strength to stay gentle in a place that constantly demands you shut down. It takes more courage to remain kind when life hands you reasons to become bitter, and even when people don't appreciate it, even when they mistake your openness for naivety, don't lose it. Because that softness is your truth, and real strength never looks like cruelty. It looks like compassion that refuses to turn to stone. You've walked through enough to know pain. You've been overlooked, underestimated, dismissed. And yet you still show up with your heart open. That's not weakness, that's grace. Anyone can become guarded. Anyone can learn to push others away and call it strength. But choosing to still believe in kindness, in connection, in love that doesn't hurt, that's rare. And maybe it doesn't always protect you. Maybe it means you feel things more deeply, carry things a little longer, but it also means you're alive in a way others aren't. You don't have to shut yourself off to protect your worth. You just have to know it. The more you embrace your softness, the more you stop begging for love that can't hold it. You stop bending to be palatable to people who don't know how to receive you. You stop chasing respect from those who think power means control. Because you've learned that the loudest strength isn't in dominance, it's in presence. It's in being able to say, I care and I won't be ashamed of that. I love deeply and I won't hide it. I choose softness and I still stand tall. Not everyone will understand your heart. Some will try to take from it without giving back. Some will see your openness as permission to push boundaries, and it will hurt. But that doesn't mean you need to become someone you're not. It means you need stronger boundaries, not a harder soul. You can be soft and still say no. You can be kind and still protect your peace. You can feel deeply and still walk away when love demands your silence in return. Because the truth is, when you embrace who you are fully, unapologetically, you stop fitting into places that require your abandonment. And yes, it might mean you're alone sometimes, but that solitude is honest. That silence is healing, and eventually the people who are meant for you will see your softness not as something to exploit, but something to honor. So keep your heart open, even when it feels easier to close. Keep being the one who shows up with empathy in a world full of indifference. You don't have to be harder to be stronger. You just have to be you, whole, present, unashamed, because real power doesn't shout. Real power doesn't chase. It simply stands in its truth, soft and steady, just like you always have. Letting go is not easy, especially when your heart still remembers the softness of the beginning. There's a kind of ache in walking away from something that once felt like everything, something you held on to, even when it began to hurt more than heal. You tell yourself that maybe you just need more time, maybe you owe it another chance. But eventually you reach a point where staying feels like abandoning yourself, and that's when you know. You can't hold on to what keeps breaking you, no matter how much you once loved it. Sometimes the hardest truth is realizing that what you once prayed for no longer fits the person you've become. You outgrow people, places, patterns, not out of arrogance, but because you're healing. And healing means you stop settling for pain dressed as loyalty. You stop believing that love is supposed to be earned through endurance. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces that no longer recognize your value. And in that process, you don't just lose others, you find yourself. It's okay to love something and still leave it behind. That's not betrayal, that's honesty. You can miss someone and still know they were not right for you. You can carry memories without letting them chain you to the past. Just because something once made you happy doesn't mean you're meant to hold onto it forever. Growth asks us to release, to create space for what aligns with who we are now, not who we were then. And the truth is, people will not always understand why you had to let go. They may question your silence, your distance, your change, but they weren't there when your heart was heavy in the quiet hours. They didn't feel the weight of your waiting, the ache of your hope slowly fading. You did, you lived it, and that's enough. You don't need to explain healing to anyone who wasn't willing to walk through the fire with you. Letting go doesn't always happen in one moment. Sometimes it's slow, like the tide pulling back. You wake up one day and realize you no longer reach for your phone to check if they've messaged. You walk past a place that once reminded you of them, and it doesn't sting the same way. That's healing, quiet, invisible, but powerful. You stop begging for what should have been given freely. You stop chasing respect from those who made you question your worth. And in that stillness, you start to rebuild. You're allowed to change your mind about what you need. You're allowed to say, that version of love no longer serves me. Growth doesn't mean you were wrong before. It means you've learned, and what you've learned has brought you back to yourself. Back to the softness you tried to hide, back to the dignity you once compromised, back to the kind of peace that doesn't come from being loved by others, but from loving yourself enough to walk away when it hurts. No one tells you how freeing it is to let go until you do it, until you stand in your own space, no longer haunted by the fear of being alone, until you realize that solitude doesn't mean emptiness, it means truth. And from that truth, you start to live differently. You stop asking for permission. You stop explaining your worth. You start choosing yourself in ways you never knew you could. You are not abandoning love. You're honoring it by refusing to accept the version that broke you. And in time, the right people, the right peace, the right kind of love will come, not because you chased it, not because you begged for it, but because you made space for it, by letting go of what never deserved to stay.